Hello, AI-generated friends, and welcome back to Woodwave. Today, for the first time ever, I'm going to attempt to cover multiple topics. We've got a few gaming-related funsies to talk about today, starting with the AI phenomenon. And this time, we're looking at Call of Duty Black Ops, because who else other than Activision is going to absolutely riddle their video game full of AI-generated art, and in some cases, even charge you for that art? I mean, what are we doing here? This is nothing that you're paying for. I don't even know where to begin, but I'm gonna begin. Let's react. All right, so this started when a user noticed this load screen. It's a generic load screen in Call of Duty. This zombie, I want you to take a close look at this zombie. And don't read what the caption says. Just take a close look. Because at first, even I was like, this one always slips by me. I guess I have the brain of an AI, because I never noticed right away. And then you start to count the fingers and you realize, wait, how many do I have? It is a zombie, you know. I heard some people trying to theorize that maybe that extra pinky he's got dangling down there could be like loose skin ripped off from the finger. But with some other examples that I'm going to pull or show you, it seems pretty clear that this is probably AI. And I mean, to be honest, the whole picture just screams AI. Like, AI images, these high-def 3D model ones, they have a certain look about them. And I mean, this is it. This is just kind of how it looks, the way the hair falls, the wrinkles in the skin, the way that they kind of like mesh together like an acid trip nightmare. It's good. It's a good AI, and I'm not surprised they thought they might get away with it, but it's definitely screaming AI to me. The hyper-realism of it all is definitely screaming AI to me. Also, in general, just this much detail in a load screen for Call of Duty Black Ops 6, I just don't see them going that extra mile. You know what I mean? So we have 6 fingers here. Clearly, this is AI. And then someone else pointed out that this image, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 again. We have 6 fingers again. And I mean, this is, I think, way more damning than the first one. Because this one you could almost pass off as like, an artist error. Maybe they just miscounted, or it is that loose, flappy skin. But at this point, I mean, you got to imagine an artist would be working from a reference photo, or they would just know how many fingers a hand has, and they'd probably stop around the 5th one here without even a thumb. I mean, you count the thumb in here, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 digits on one hand. Who are you employing to make this art? Toddlers that haven't learned how to count yet, but are somehow crazy gifted in a high detailed 3D art? And once again, it's the same 3D art style I would like to reference here to cross-check. They're clearly using the same AI generator. I always have other questions about this image, like the weird, is this beard or smoke up here? Like, what is it that the AI tried to do up here? And I mean, this whole hand is almost kind of like a monkey's paw, I feel like. Like, the whole hand just seems to be have this long, elongated palm. I don't really know where I fall in the whole use of AI thing. I think this use of AI is very clearly immoral, and just pay an artist. Just pay an artist. I think there are practical uses of AI, but this is the clear example of an AI that's using other artworks to generate something, and it's just theft, and they're charging you for it. Where I think it gets even worse than that is, if this is true, there are some theories that, and again, like, if you get caught once, if there's smoke, there's probably fire. Oh, I didn't mention, by the way, I'm sorry I'm like in the darkness. Speaking of fire, I wish there was a fire in front of me. I tried for 20 minutes before going live to get my Elgato camera to work, and my Elgato light to work, which has now decided to start working and make me look like a liar. I hate you. I hate Elgato. Never buy Elgato. Elgato never works when you want it to. I need a new key light. This thing's pissing me off. Okay, it's working now. There's no smoke without fire, right? So if we see AI here and AI here, what's to say that some of the gun art isn't AI? If they're already implementing it in other places, who's to say? But apparently this has been called as possibly being AI generated. Now, without really seeing it in action, I guess it is kind of bizarre. It's kind of a bizarre design. You got like half a snake head up here. I'm not sure if I'm like missing something. It looks like it's drizzled in love juice. I don't really know. I don't really know what we're looking at here. I'm willing to believe it for the sake of my video. No, I'm willing to believe it just because we've seen it. We've seen it in other places, and there's so many different skins in these games. Why wouldn't they, if they're already using AI, push it to other places like that? And then that becomes a whole nother issue, because now you're directly microtransactioning for these AI arts. I'm not like super mad because I don't really play Call of Duty. I've messed around in Zombies, ironically, but I'm not super attached to the property, and I don't really expect much from Activision anyway. So I would be more mad if this was something coming out of like Nintendo in a Zelda or a Mario, but it's just kind of par for the course, I feel like. I don't want it. I don't like it. I don't support it. I'm not surprised by it. Speaking of Nintendo and things that aren't good, so Palworld pushed back on Nintendo trying to sue them. And Nintendo were like, you're copying us. You're copying our whole shtick. Get off our butt. We're suing you. Palworld was like, no, we're not. This is completely different. We don't even understand what Nintendo were talking about. That was their tweet. I should have found that. But their tweet was like, we don't even really understand what Nintendo were talking about. Us? Copying Pokemon? I mean, I guess there are... No, I don't even see similarities. So we'll move forward and we'll figure this out, but we have no idea what Nintendo were talking about. Now, amidst this lawsuit, they've updated the game to when you throw pals, and I actually couldn't find footage of this. This is a War Rams video, is one of the only things that came up when I searched this, but I don't think even they have footage of it yet, because I'm not sure if it's even patched yet. But essentially, before this new patch, when you threw a Pokeball or a Pal Sphere out, you would throw it, and then wherever it landed, the Pokemon or Pal would come out of the Pokeball or Pal Sphere, and it was very similar to Pokemon. They've now updated it to be where as soon as you activate the Pal Sphere, the Pal will just spawn next to you. It will just summon next to you. It doesn't have that whole animation of throwing a ball and it coming out of a ball. And it does seem to be something that they're doing to help mitigate in this lawsuit that they're facing. It's a little funny, I guess, a little ironic that they said, we have no idea what they're talking about, and we're going to push back on this, while at the same time updating their game to be less similar to Pokemon. And this mechanic in general is one that Nintendo has patented and I believe is featured within the lawsuit, catching Pokemon with a Pokeball. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, Palworld modifying the game so it lesser resembles Pokemon. I'm sure this is the outcome that Nintendo wanted anyway, and this is also something that could head towards a settlement, I'm sure. We have a mixed relationship with this topic, that being me and this topic, because I do feel like a lot of people just want to see the larger corporations burn and the smaller corporations have the underdog story, and how dare Nintendo sue an indie team kind of vibe. But I kind of fell on the other side, or at least in the middle, but definitely more towards Nintendo's side of, we don't mind if you borrow ideas that we have, or you make games inspired by our games. They allow it time and time again. I like to point towards games like Temtem, which is a straight Pokemon ripoff. But maybe don't take our image, market it as our image, and then also put guns in the game and make it super violent and go against our image. I think that's where they had an issue. Without rehashing that whole argument, I do feel like Palworld got a little too close to the line with their mechanics as far as what does make a Pokemon game. And I think clearly they are acknowledging that by patching it and changing it in some regard. I'd be more interested to see if they change the actual catching mechanic, because I would say the releasing Pokemon thing is is part of it, but almost the afterthought, quite literally the afterthought, what comes after the main mechanic, that is whittling down a Pokemon's health, throwing a Pokeball at it, it being a ball and having a chance of catching it depending on how weakened the Pokemon is, and then obviously eventually catching it and adding it to your belt of Pokeballs. I think all of that is the main thing Nintendo is more concerned with than actually releasing it, although I'm sure that's part of it. So it'll be interesting to see if moving forward they actually make any other changes amidst this lawsuit. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about in Woodwave today was I wanted to touch on Ubisoft. I wanted to touch on it just to follow the story. We talked before about them possibly selling the company, and we theorized many reasons why. But they are still considering this buyout situation. And it's amidst their share prices falling 50%. So this was posted on Saturday. Ubisoft's tumultuous 2024 continues. What a potential buyouts is starting to spread again as the publisher struggles to find itself following a series of poor decisions, layoffs, and general mismanagement. I honestly feel like the Star Wars situation hurt them a lot. They were given a huge opportunity with that game. I'm sure they invested tons into it for it to, for all intents and purposes, flop. And at this point, just be a dead game. I can't imagine. That must have hurt. Like, if you can get the Star Wars property and fumble the bag, that's a tough one. You only get one shot sometimes with stuff like that, and even a company as big as Ubisoft might not be able to float such a huge failure. Two anonymous sources have told this article that the family that owns Ubisoft, the company's largest shareholder, with co-founder, I can't read that name, still serving as Ubisoft CEO, wishes to retain control of the business, while other shareholders like Tencent buy the publisher out of its current financial woes. So yeah, we talked also about this, but Star Wars, after its failure, Ubisoft went back in the lab with Assassin's Creed Shadows, delaying it several months, I think like half a year to 2025. And it's such a bizarre quote they gave too. They said something like, even though we feel like Assassin's Creed Shadows is ready for people to play, the release of Star Wars really showed us that we should probably spend more time developing it and like polishing it, essentially, which is so wild to me, the mentality that game designers and developers and publishers have these days. Like, yeah, this game is ready, let's just put it out there. And then they see something fail and they're like, well, it is ready, but let's make it more ready. Like, what do you mean make it more ready? Like, a game should be done when it's done. And I know that's such an old mentality, and I'm not even going to bring out the Miyamoto quote or just the Nintendo vibe in general, because it's just the way it used to be for everyone, that a game was done when it was done. And we either appreciated it because it was incredible, or we didn't because it wasn't, you know? And to me, it's also like, there are a lot of people now that message me or talk to me about Cyberpunk, and they're like, oh, you should play it now. It's so good now. They made it so good. I couldn't care less. I have no interest, because when it released and I played through the game from start to finish, it was not a good game. It was a joke of a game. I don't care if it's better now. I don't want to have to replay it from start to finish and have elements spliced in here or there that make the vibe of playing the whole game more enjoyable. I've already played it. It came out years ago. It's done. It's over for me. There's no fixing it. There's no going back and being like, oh, it is actually pretty good now. Who cares if it's actually pretty good now if I've already played it and it was bad? That's a different game then, and I just have no interest. Release something else, release something new, and I'll try with your next game, you know? And I feel the same way with Starfield. They added in a ton of extra DLC, the Shattered Space stuff that was supposed to buff out and fill out some gaps and make it more enjoyable. You did have to play like 20 or so hours of the base game to even be able to access that content, but apparently it made the game better from there. But even still, I've already played it. I played as much as I could stomach it. I'm not going to go back because you release DLC 8-9 months later that make it slightly more enjoyable or even fixes it. I don't care if it even fixes it. Just release a game when it's ready. Sorry for that tangent. Just release a game when it's ready. And it's crazy to me that they were going to release Assassin's Creed Shadows and then decided we could make it better. If you could make it better, you should have been making it better. And that's the issue, because you released Star Wars Outlaws before it was better. You released every recent Assassin's Creed since, I don't know, 2 before it was better, because you just want to put things out and then start working on the next thing. And it's the reason why your shares are down 50%, and it's the reason why your company is probably going to be bought out. And it's such a shame, because I really appreciate and loved old school Ubisoft. Old school Ubisoft slapped. Early Prince of Persias, early Assassin's Creeds, early Far Cries, even some of the later Far Cries. I mean, that series did well for a while. I mean, early Rayman. They had some really great games and also some really great concepts. Watch Dogs is still one of the best concepts for a game, and they released 3 duds. I don't even know how they managed it 3 times. Oh, Skull and Bones. I was so excited for that. That was such another great concept. I could honestly do a whole video on Skull and Bones the same way that I did Cyberpunk. I just really wasn't interested because the game was so boring, but it had so much potential. All you had to do was make it like Black Flag, but better. And you somehow made it like Black Flag, but worse. Despite it having like 10 years of development time, it still wasn't ready when it was released. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with Ubisoft, but I'm really not surprised that probably everyone except the guy in charge just wants to sell it and be done with it. It also doesn't help, I don't think, that every game they release, you can sure bet on it being $20 in 6 months. So I will play Star Wars Outlaws again. I only played it for a few hours on a remote stream with Ubisoft themselves, and then I was bored and had no interest in playing it in launch, but I knew if I waited, I could get it for $20 eventually. And I will play it eventually when it's $20. And I feel like that's going to be pretty soon. And I think this mentality of like, I don't have to buy a Ubisoft game at launch, I can wait till Black Friday, is really what's killing them. And I don't know how they change that. I don't know how they fix that from happening. That's my wood wave. I'm done talking. I want to know all of your thoughts on all of the things I said down below. Like, comment, and my hair is up, but flip that button on the subscribe button, and bye.